Hello, everyone. This is a special Thanksgiving edition of the Dirty South Security Podcast. I am accompanied today by Ruby Agarwal, VP and Head of Cloud Platform Operations at Avaya. She is a force and veteran in the technology space over the past 25 years, having led at different places such as Infosys, Deloitte, Nortel, and most recently at Avaya. Welcome, Ruby. How are you today?
I am very, very good. Having a good day. Beautiful weather. Just getting ready for Thanksgiving.
Absolutely. This is a perfect time to get dirty, as we say here in the Dirty South Security episode. For all of our new time listeners out there, I just wanted to be able, and for you, Ruby, I know that we probably didn't cover this when we got together recently in the beautiful city of Dallas, but the Dirty South Security podcast is a podcast where we dive in. You know, we have a really good episode today. The topic for today is leadership in the AI era. And we're going to talk about a couple different cornerstones. And as always, on the Dirty South Security podcast, we're here to, have an invigorating conversation, make sure to represent a lot of status quo trends that are happening with changes in technology, AI adoption, AI proliferation, regulation, governance, and most importantly, in this podcast, we're talking about leadership. Now, there's no better person that I can think of to talk about leadership. I was really impressed when we had a chance to talk together and have lunch. Was really impressed upon me is not just the diversity of places that you have been at, Ruby, but also just your origin story overall. If you can just don't mind setting the table a little bit about your backgrounds, just to kind of fill in the blanks of what I've introduced of you, share our listeners a little bit about what makes Ruby today who she is.
Oh, absolutely. So first, thank you for having me. Really, really excited to be here, especially when we talk about, you said leadership, you said AI. These are the conversations that matter today. So absolutely very thrilled to be here. Um, I've been in this space. You mentioned cloud operations, cloud infrastructure in this space for more than a decade, driving cloud transformation, AI adoption, DevOps, DevSecOps. FinOps, AI ops, you name it, and I've been in that space. But you know what? At the core, what really gets me going, what I'm passionate about, is helping teams rise, simplifying complexity, and being able to achieve and deliver with true agility. That is truly what I'm passionate about, and how leadership has changed over the years from traditional leadership to how we have to enable our teams today. So, leadership, agility, and how we have to transform and grow our teams. In terms of my background, um, many different things. So, I grew up in India. I come over there. I did my engineering back in India, and then I came here. Growing up, I was brought up to be get married, make sure you learn cooking, crochet, knitting, etc. And yes, I'm very good at it. Used to enjoy it. Having
Right.
said that, I always believed in that. I remember I was in sixth grade and my cousin had come, a distant cousin had come, and she was an engineer, and everyone was praising her. And I was like, oh, she became an engineer and everyone's praising her. I'm like, how do you become an engineer? And they go, you got to be good at math. And I'm like, I got that. And that's how I decided I want to become an engineer. Nobody in my family till then was an engineer. So it's just a matter of thinking about where I want to go, where I want to take my life is how I started. I also now host the Growth Almanac. It's a podcast where I share real life stories on how to overcome challenges. And really, growth comes at unexpected turn. And it's upon us as to when we take or how we take action to actually take those opportunities. Another thing that I launched this year is behavioral agility, but maybe that's a topic for another day. So, yeah, very thrilled to dive in.
Yeah, no, all those topics are, I mean, behavior agility is something that, definitely needs its own spotlight for sure. And And, when we had a chance to get together in Dallas, and this is a good segue into segment one, which is really leadership and the mindset shift. We come from an era where, you think about the days of waterfall development, a very linear process, a very structured process. You had monolithic applications, you had very, different roles, developers, build masters, architects, everyone in their corner. And then now you fast forward to today, you have a lot of chaos. You have a lot of emerging, technology, supply chain issues, and everyone's depending on somebody else to do some aspect of the front end, the back end development. So there's a lot of chaos, and so leadership is, how would you say, you've seen a lot of the traditional linear waterfall approaches, and now everyone talks about agile, and I don't think ever anyone's really matured in that area. But it looks like we're going from control to more curious, and then more of a controlled mayhem, if you will. How would you describe the necessary essentials? And maybe this draws from some of the other things that you put on the table, in terms of leadership. But what is needed today? If you were to be that young aspiring engineer, right, graduating, coming out, what would you tell the young 2025 version of Ruby today?
I I would say, number one, being in the technology space, there's two things and very distinct topics. Two things: you can do great work in your little cubicle, but make your connections. Look at the solution, have a product thinking and a systems thinking, and build your connections. Um, that's number one. But tying it back to our episode title, I would say be adaptable. Number one is be adaptable. Look around you, have awareness of what is shifting, what is changing. So be very aware, notice, go ahead and be adaptable. So leadership to me today is adaptability. It's not even it's literally how fast can you adapt, because the world around us is shifting every day. The tools around us are shifting every day. The market is shifting way faster than how we can adapt. So it is all about how fast you can change your thought process, even without the right answers. Being adaptable, minimum information, have a perspective, get whatever data you can if you need, and keep shifting. Tomorrow is not going to be like today. 2 weeks from now is not going to be like next week.
Yes. Well, I mean, that sounds really chaotic. And let me just play devil's advocate here, because this is the Dirty South Security podcast, and we want to have a little bit of give and take. So I'm envisioning myself and listening as, let's say, a 25, 27-year-old. It sounds really chaotic. It sounds really stressful. If on top of that, there's all these elements that are changing, but you have to lead people, different cultures. I mean, you look at the diversity of teams in the 1980s and 1990s versus where we are today globally, very different. So what would you say, just purely on the leadership? So yes, adaptability is definitely one, to be able to roll with the punches per se, but in terms of leading in that chaos, what would you say? I mean, obviously you've done it, right? You're at a VP level of one of the most recognizable telecom companies in globally. And so what is the secret?
I think I've always gone after the outcome. So bringing clarity to my teams, when it starts with, there is so much chaos, there is so much noise around us, and we have to manage this chaos, fast-paced chaos, if you may. But you have to help your teams eliminate the noise to bring a clarity for them. And as long as you tell them, here's the why, here's why it matters, here's how it matters, here's your outcome if you do that. And in addition, make it a space where they are able to discuss, have a conversation. It's a multi-way conversation. It's not a one-way conversation. Have
Right.
that conversation, and you will be able to get eliminate the noise or at least reduce the noise for them to be able to move forward. And that I think is the crux of how do you find value, or how do you move forward in all of this noise?
One of the things that you mentioned right before that, and I agree with everything that you just mentioned here, there's this expression about faking it until you make it, or
Absolutely.
there's also another expression of, it's kind of like the fear of that you're not good enough, right? It's always thinking that there's too much information, there's too many things going on. And so you're having this sort of like amateur syndrome, or like, imposter syndrome, as they call it. Is imposter syndrome real? Is it exacerbated by where we are in a digital age of just massive emerging technologies, especially in the age of AI, where it's difficult when you're having internal conversations on AI initiatives, AI governance, building emerging technologies? Who's the expert? And so how do you lead when there is this big fear of, just being an amateur, imposter syndrome? How do you do that if you have
So
that
yes,
feeling?
imposter syndrome is real. And I will say that I used to have that syndrome very much.
Really? Okay.
Yes, it doesn't come across. Most people tell me it doesn't come across, but I did have that. And this concept, and I'll talk about my story, and then I'll translate it into how to overcome it for others. So,
Hmm.
for example, for me itself, I was like, I was very good at X, Y, and Z, like at my work and the areas that I had worked on, the skill where I was skilled, I had the expertise, no problem, very confident. But then there are other areas in my life I was like, I'm not good enough. Even a year ago, I wouldn't post on social media. I was like, what will people think? What do I have to share with the world? That's where I was just a year and a half ago. And
Right.
I started working on myself, and I realized I know as much as the other person in the room. And I basically repeated this mantra to myself, saying, confidence is not what comes first, courage does. So we really need you take that first step, take the baby step, take action, and then you will learn from it. Then you will, just keep learning, adjusting, and you will get better within whatever time frame you're looking at. So my message to everybody is, if ever you feel you're not good enough, you are good. That's your limiting belief. Number one, train your mind. You are good enough. You don't know enough. If you have this feeling you don't know enough, well, you do. All you need to do is just take a baby step, do something. If you don't know the topic, go Google it, go chat GPT it. You'll get your answers. Repeat it. You learn something from it, and just keep moving forward. I remember when I started doing posting, let's say on LinkedIn earlier, my friends
Hmm.
used to say, hey, you're writing so well now. And I'm like, yeah, it's all chat GPT. And I would say that. And they were like, oh, that's you, because the whole world has chat GPT, but you're the one who's using it to your advantage in a way that it is your voice and your thought process. Because when I read it, it's the Ruby I know,
Right.
right? And I think part of it is just practicing and getting used to it.
Ruby, I gotta hand it to you. It's refreshing to basically get that candor, because most people wouldn't even admit that, right? I mean, if someone compliments a leader in the tech industry and they say, hey, you have a lot of great novel ideas and thoughts and reflections, they're like, oh, thank you, right? But what you're doing and what you're saying here is you're sharing with everybody that's listening and watching is that you too, right? There is, I'm looking at your background, right? I mean, it's impressive. Infosys, Deloitte, Nortel, Avaya, you got government, private sector experience, and you've ascended. And I think what I like about this podcast is that we like to, have these golden moments where, oops, it looks like it zoomed in on me. Sorry about that for all the viewers out there. But you have this golden nugget of an information where you say confidence begins with courage, and that's very apropos. And to what you just said about, yes, there's a lot of people using AI, but it's your voice, it's your engineering in the prompt, right? So there's a lot of elements. Speaking of AI, this is perfect segue into segment two. Now, obviously there's a lot of concern globally on where AI is taking us. There's ethical concerns, there's governance concerns, there's concerns on, equanimity in terms of access to these platforms because they're very costly. Not all countries and people have access to, spare tokens, right? To leverage and build and have innovations. Let's begin with the obvious thing that's on everyone's mind, especially we hear all of these companies just this past week do layoffs, right? You see Verizon, you see, Microsoft, Apple recently. Is AI, in your personal prognosis, do you think that AI is going to be a major disruptor in employment markets and cause some level of challenges as leaders hold their teams together?
We're already seeing the disruption. So number one, yes, it is going to be disrupting the employment metrics, if you may.
Okay.
But as and there is certain jobs that will go away and there are new jobs that are coming up. So while AI is taking away some of the traditional jobs, it is also introducing a lot more novel areas and jobs. What those will be, there's a lot to be seen. There are very creative people that are actually adding. You see, vibe coding, the number of companies that are coming with vibe coding in 48-hour and 1 month they're opening new businesses. There will be new. I mean, yes, it's a little bit more disruptive than, let's say, some of the older technologies. Whether, I'm not even talking internet, I'm talking when YouTube came in.
Right.
Look at what kind of businesses YouTube has created, and
Yeah.
the market has changed. So yes, AI is going to be a disruptor. In the short term, we are seeing a lot more disruption, but I do believe there will be new opportunities, new businesses, new use cases that will open up, and that's how the world will survive. The way I'm thinking about it is AI is not replacing individual. AI is not the one replacing individuals or leaders. It really is replacing the people who are not willing to adopt and adapt to AI. Those are
Yeah.
the people that are being replaced.
And that's what I'm seeing. Let me ask you this question. This is what I'm seeing a lot of. I see a lot of like discouragement, right? Oftentimes I see, technologists that are, let's say in their 30s even, or even in their 40s. And, they find that in a tumultuous market, that AI competition is unnerving. And so they start to be able to lose some of that very confidence that you mentioned, right? They start to lose some of that courage. As a leader, if you see this, in organizations, what's your recommendation?
I'll give you an example. So around 4 months ago, our CEO, he introduced AI to every person in the organization, actually a year ago, and it became a mandate. And I saw even within my team, there were people who were finishing their work the traditional way or completing their projects the traditional way. Oh, I don't have time to go learn, adopt, try out.
Mm-hmm.
That is what we did was we sort of forced the issue. We had hackathons twice a week within small teams to force the issue of getting the teams to adopt AI and actually use it in their everyday activities, if you may. So coming back to your question, the reality is at the end of the day, people are getting discouraged because they're getting a lot of the noise and the information. As a leader, my direction would be work with them. Work with them, lead by example. I'll tell you what I did. One fine day, I hadn't written code in 15 years. I didn't
Yeah.
have my dev environment set up, maybe more, and I didn't have my environment set up. And that's the one thing that would always stop me. And then one fine day, I had Cursor and I had all our source code repos and just in one day and I had some PRs written and I sent it to one of the engineers and I said, hey, you didn't approve my PR. And he goes, what? We're getting PRs from you. And even today, like this morning, I had a guy I was interviewing. I mean, I took his permission to turn on transcription. Took me 5 minutes after the call for me to send the right information to our HR team on the interview feedback. And it's like every step of the way, things that I used to do in 1 week, now I do in 10 minutes or 1 hour based on the activity. And the point is, it is available to everybody that is willing to actually use the tools that are available for them.
100%. And just to close out this segment on the human AI partnership that's unfolding and going to be with us for some time, I do see that there's some challenges. I actually, as you were talking, Ruby, I was reflecting, why is it actually, in my opinion, easier for veterans that have been in IT operations for 20 plus years, 15 plus years, to be able to engage with AI? I mean, you would almost think the opposite, but I think the aspect of experience translating into prompt engineering versus if you're a young professional and you don't have that experience, then the context of engaging with artificial intelligence is making it to be a lot more difficult in them asking, where do I even start? So, what do you think about the idea of like having, I mean, you put a great recommendation, which is basically show by example, right? Have you heard or seen the effectiveness of like AI office hours where they, have like these hackathons of, prompt engineering so that there's where everyone's trying to lead and raise the level of AI fluency?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, and I'll give you an example in my org, and then I'll give you another example. So we had a project. We have a lot of our infrastructure code in Terraform Cloud, and we had to migrate it over to manage the state ourselves into our, and I'm going a little bit techie, to do it through GitHub Actions. And the estimate was a 1% year worth of estimate in terms of being able to do it. And we were like, okay, we can't take that. We had a little mini hackathon, 2 hours, got 3 engineers on it. And we said, here's the different modules, 3 different modules, or all of you try. 2 hours in the A, I saw an engineer in the team that never speaks. He was the most vocal in the team in that particular. He was so excited,
Nice.
right? And so you're seeing that kind of excitement, but then at the end of 2 hours, we're like, it's just a month's worth of work.
Yeah.
Right. So you're seeing that acceleration. Take it to the non-techie group, right? One thing that I have learned is you ask AI to help you. So instead of thinking, what do I do? Or how do I even use you? You can say, I don't know where to start.
Yes.
I'm
Absolutely.
thinking X. I've had conversations with ChatGPT saying, talk to me, I'm bored.
Right.
Okay. So so what I'm saying is, if you don't know where to start, be honest, verbalize it and say, I don't know where to start. Tell me what to think about. Tell me, I don't even know what to, like literally it will help you. It's about taking the action. It's about engaging with it. And you will, before you know it, in half an hour, in 2 hours, you'll be way past the mental block of, I don't know where to start.
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head. I think oftentimes those, they have this self expectation that they put on themselves to say, I have to know enough to sit in this AI chair to interact with the artificial intelligence. When it's actually the opposite to your point. You can literally come and say, I have no clue, or talk to me and explain this to me like I'm in 5th grade. And it's refreshing actually, right? Because from there, to your point, you can iterate and then advance and learn with the AI. And therein lies the opportunity. But coaching and leading that, going back to the topic for today, is the definite challenge. Now let's move over to segment 3. Here we dive into leadership and ethics, especially when it comes to AI adoption. There's a lot of quasi unethical things. I was just researching some of the poster child unethical things that have happened with AI adoption, use, and marketing. And one of them that came up, and not to really talk bad about any company, but any particular failures that are out there in the industry serve as teachable moments, as I like to call it, right? And so IBM Watson had a healthcare focus, and we see a lot of IBM Watson commercials. And to be honest, superb job on the marketing. A superb job on the marketing. I mean, they're on point. It's really inviting to say, hey, you know what? I want to be able to engage because I could see where we could leverage this thing. But unfortunately, the case study was that there was a lot of physicians that were simply getting bad data. Now, the ethical aspect of this segment is there's like a gold rush right now, Ruby. You know it better than I do, right? Organizations are like, how do we get to 70% cost efficiency? How do we go to market faster? How do we develop this new technology and have an MVP by tomorrow, right? First off, how do you lead against some of these unethical pushes, which have always been with us? I don't think it's anything new. I think that they're being exacerbated by the hype that we're in. What are your thoughts around this?
My direction there, or the way I think about it, is it's not about how do I get there faster. It's about, especially in context of AI, how do I get more in the time that I used to get X? How do I get Y by accelerating and using the tools that I have at hand?
Hmm.
So you have to think about, you can't get more by working the same exact way that you did in the past. Um, that's not going to happen. You have the same set of resources and the same amount of time. You can go faster, you can get more, but then you have to use the tools. And it comes back to, are you shifting and adapting, and are you actually um, engaging, researching, utilizing the capabilities and tools that you have available to you? And I would again go back to get in, learn as fast as you can, and you don't even have to learn everything. It's there at your fingertips.
Yeah.
So
No, 100%. Now, sometimes this rush to simply profitability, rush to market penetration because of dollars, especially, one reality is that there's a lot of tech firms that are out there that are owned by private equity and venture capital. And, that's lighting a fire for really rushing, right? And, underneath this segment of ethical, you know, leading in ethical adoption use of AI, there's a trust factor, right? There is, if we go back to the cloud era where we see, Amazon, Azure, Google Cloud coming up, Oracle Cloud, in the early years, no one really knew what they were getting into. So trust was up in the air. Right now, we kind of find ourselves, I mean, do we trust OpenAI? Do we trust Anthropic? Do we trust, XAI, right? And so trust is up for grabs. And even so much more for the startups that are leveraging AI in their platforms. How do you lead a business model with trust in mind? So you talk about, yes, leveraging the tools that you have, the capabilities, but then how do you package it up to make sure that you have a sustainable business model where you're leading solutions that build trust in the marketplace and with the people that are building your product?
governance. So it doesn't matter whether you're using AI. Yes, it may be faster. It doesn't matter whether you're using AI or whether even in the traditional model, as long you need to have a certain level of guardrails and governance in place for you to be able to make sure that you are building that trust or exhibiting the trust that you have earning the trust that you have always gained from, let's say, your customers. You have to be transparent where you use AI. You need to be transparent about it. You need to be putting in the guardrails and making sure that you are using these tools in the right use cases, if you may. I was reading an article on one of the use cases where there was a suicide prevention agency,
Hmm.
and they had implemented AI for responses to a person who would call in at the hotline. Maybe that is not the best use case, at least not until it is fully mature, because there you need more than just responding to the questions or the statements that the person is saying. You have to learn the tone, you have to understand the context, you have to be empathize with the person. So it again depends on the use cases, but most of the time, as long as you put guardrails in place and you're transparent about it, and you have security in place, et cetera, et cetera, I think it will pan out.
Yes, absolutely. Um, I remember that case. I think you're referring to. There was a character.ai. There was a like a chat bot that ultimately, went rogue and recommended some self harm for a lot of young teenagers. And I think there's been more than one case, related to that. And it's worth emphasizing to be able to emphasize that governance, making sure that there is a proper understanding of a threat model and go to market. I'm interested to kind of stay on this point and ask you, what do you think the dichotomy of functional development and secure development will be in an AI world? Do you finally feel that there will be a convergence, or do you feel that it'll just be a continuation of those two different roads where you have functional development based upon, you know, uh, customer needs and requirements, but sometimes foregoing the security requirements that are needed to safeguard against, maybe a chatbot that goes rogue and tells somebody to do something harmful to themselves? What are your thoughts in terms of the
I'm a
dichotomy?
strong believer in security as part of your everyday development, as opposed to security as a gate. So it's from the beginning, bake security into any product that you are building. And I do believe that it's actually security is converging with the functional requirements. More and more security is actually being considered um, uh, a functional requirement, because a lot of pretty much everyone in the industry is now, when selecting you as a vendor, is going to first ask for your security posture.
Right.
Right. So it doesn't have the same, it does have a lot more weight today than it used to in the past, especially because you were living within the enterprise. A lot of this, all of the software was running within the enterprise. Now everything's in the cloud, running at cloud speed, AI speed. So I do believe the two worlds are converging, and I've seen many different industries where literally there's a roadmap where security is spelled and stated in the same sentence as the functional requirements.
Let me ask you a question. Let's say that you were called in front of the U.S. Congress,
Okay.
and on the topic of governance, they were to ask your opinion as a technology leader in really critical infrastructure, right? I mean, telecommunications technically is critical infrastructure, equipment and protocols and networks and things like that. Is regulation the answer to that governance? We've tried regulation in the past. What are your thoughts on regulation as a way to require governance for ethical leadership of AI?
I believe regulation has a place. It used to have a place, and it still has a place in the technology/security industry. Uh, you may regulation helps us with having standards that then everyone has to adhere to. Like if you are in the industry and you want to adhere to those security policies, I don't want to use the word guidelines are often overlooked. Policies you end up implementing which
Yeah.
come from regulations. So I do believe regulation still has a place in if not more important, still has a place in the industry for us to be able to deliver secure and scalable solutions in the market.
I gotta say, I'm a little jaded on that. It's there's been a lot of regulation going back to GLBA, Sarbanes-Oxley, and a lot of things. And I agree with you. Their policies do get enforced because there is regulation. The problem that I see is that there's so many discrepancies on enforcement, right? The sometimes there's no enforcement, and so people will just get away with murder, right? When it comes to AI ethics and implementation of safeguards. And then in other cases, there's so many discrepancies, right, with enforcement that in the market of free will, you're going to go where there's the least friction. If there is players that are going to check the box, then it's a way to really manipulate the altruistic intent of regulation. And therein continues the problem of ethics, I think, going into the new era of AI. I did want to close out this segment by asking, because I know we're coming up on time, and I want to finish off on our fourth segment. Is Coca-Cola recently was being criticized by their recent holiday commercials that were all AI generated. And during the holidays, Thanksgiving, Christmas, you see the polar bear, the Coca-Cola, all that stuff. All that was artistic content creation. Now it's all spun up with AI. This brings up the topic of not necessarily ethics, but what is real and what is fake. And are we going into a new era where, false, just anything that's like fake or fabricated is going to get so mass produced that now that's the new baseline of normality? What are your thoughts on that? And is there any ethical issues there?
I am still struggling on this one. I have not been able to explain it, talk it out, or even accept it. So I haven't been able to accept it. There is a true issue of fakes, if you may, today. And it's very hard today to be able to um, say to what extent is it acceptable. There will be use cases where you'll say, oh yeah, this is fun, no harm, no issue.
Right.
But then how far do you go? So it is a real issue today. Is there a solution? I don't know. Will it explode even more? Absolutely yes. We'll have to wait and watch and see.
No, 100%. Yeah, I think there's a lot of TBD on that, but it's great opportunities for real leadership. And speaking of real leadership, let's close out with segment 4, practical leadership moves and recommendations. Let's talk about some practical things leaders, whether they're veterans or just coming into this space, that they can do entering into this AI driven world. Either they're using AI tools or asked to develop using AI assisted environments. What are your practical takeaways as a leader that you would recommend?
I would say make space. Number one, make space for your teams to experiment. If you don't make space and they are still very heavy on their delivery timelines, there's no way that they will be able to experiment. Number
Solid point.
number two, failures. There will be failures. And this time, use the failure as data because you will have a lot of failures and you will have a lot of data from that. Um, enable them with the tools. So in this world of cost cutting, you have to give them I say best, but best with appropriate. Give your teams the best tools for them to be able to use AI. If you are not enabling them, then it isn't going to help. Um, the rest is standard. I mean, have your game days, have your metrics and dashboard. Make it fun.
Yeah, no, I mean, as a leader myself in two different organizations, I mean, I'm listening to you and I'm like, I got to put this into practice, myself. It's so easy to get lost in the hustle and the bustle
Yeah.
and creating the space, creating the opportunities, it takes time, like you mentioned, and you got to be able to lead and make sure that the team members have the right tools, they're best in breed, and they have the space and the time to be able to build. Those are great thoughts. I wanted to close out and ask you, on this eve of Thanksgiving, on this eve of gratitude, if you will, and talking about leadership, what is a leader? And it could be a leader that's either touched your life, personally because they led you, they managed you, and it could be in any industry that you were at, some of the ones I mentioned or beyond, or maybe it was a leader that you looked at and learned from afar, even in reading about the leadership. What has been a leadership, a type of leadership that you really kind of taken with you as part of your own journey and in technology?
Thinking, there are so many of them. I would like to say Jensen Wang, but that one is more of a cliche. Like, I love him. Every single episode of his podcast. It's like a 1 hour podcast, and I would be listening to him. And there's like I have my notebook uh, taking notes for every little sentence or quote that he speaks. I'll be taking notes. There's so many of them, like Simon Sinek,
Hmm.
uh, quite a bit. Every airplane flight that I'm going on, it's like he's in my ear. I'm listening to one of his books, kind of thing. I think I remember this one, Tony Robbins. I heard this podcast maybe 6, 7 years ago, and it stuck with me. And he was saying, he came from a very poor family, didn't have food on the table, and he said he was 20 at the time. And one fine day, he said, "This is where I'm going to be 5 years from now, and this is where I'm going to be 10 years from now." And that stuck with me because I personally was always thinking about my next job or my next promotion or my next
Right.
raise. And I was like, I'm done with that. Here's what my dream is. Here's where I want to be 5 years from now. And yes, I can do anything. So we've all got these limiting beliefs. I can only go so far, or I only know so much. My learning over the years is you can do anything. I can do anything. I just have to put my mind to it and my heart to it and move forward. And there's many more. There's so many people who've touched my life. I'll take on a personal note. My father-in-law, he told me when I got married, one of the things he said was, so we're middle class family, my family, his family, and he saw me that, we have had troubles, like the financial troubles growing up. So he could see that I had that in my mind. And it was like, uh, I can't lose my job. Like that was the thought process I had growing up. And so then I was sitting with him at a table and he said, never work in fear. Don't work in fear. He said, we are here to back you up. That was one sentence. And that just changed how I think. I never worked in fear after that of losing my job. It was always, I'm going to do what's right and I'm going to do what I enjoy. And so, again, he's not a world renowned leader, but he shaped my career based on those 4 words that he said to me.
I mean, wow. The aspect of fear and conquering fear is a podcast in and of itself. It's, kudos to your father-in-law and for being in your life to be able to share and impart that wisdom. That's gold. You can't progress with fear on your shoulders, right? You have to shed that weight to be able to go through the barriers, and that's something that I've definitely imparted, to others that have come and work. And it's difficult, right? It's difficult because that fear can be so gripping. It's like a vice grip. And, it's so overwhelming that people know nothing else except for fear aversion.
Mm-hmm.
And they don't even consider the possibilities of success without that fear. But there's a strong new world of where that fear doesn't even exist because you've overcome it. It's buried, and you look back and it's like, I can't even believe this was even relevant, right? So, um, but like you said, Ruby, the influences of leadership come from all different places, sizes, and shapes, and it sounds like you've had, a good influence of a lot of different sources, which has clearly made you a force in technology today. I really appreciate and am thankful for this day, this time that you've given me and all of us and all of our listeners. Thank you so much. We definitely got to do a part 2 in the future. Safe travels to you. A big shout out to Versprite for the podcast, sponsoring the podcast, and to all of our listeners. Happy Thanksgiving to you, and catch us next time on the Dirty South Security Podcast. Take care.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you.